Star Trek, The Nerdy Frontier. These are the discussions of the Good Times Society. Their continuing mission, to explore each episode, to seek out new topics and ridiculous observations, to boldly watch what they've already watched before. So Becca and Xander, I'd like to create an audio time capsule right now. Something that we can preserve for our future selves, as a matter of fact. So the year is 2020. Let's have this audio capsule be opened in 2070, 50 years from now. And what it will be is, I want to know what you think your old person voice sounds like. Because I think as an actor, it's very difficult to do an old person voice when you are younger. And it's hard to kind of define what it is, much less your own voice.
I want revenge.
Well, the thing is, I feel like if it's coming from like a character or something, or like a cartoon, it's a little easier. But when you try to do it out of your own mouth, there's something that's a little incongruous.
Give me the hostages.
I will take this negotiation.
Pretty
So
good.
you both have like a diminished lung capacity, it sounds like.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely.
It's from years of hardship.
From years of podcasting.
Now, do you think the future you from 50 years from now will be offended at the choice that past you has made?
Well, I'm either going
Absolutely.
to sound better or worse than this, so I'm either right or complimentary.
Great point. Jake, what's yours?
Oh yeah, I should actually do
Yeah.
mine, which I think will just be a little bit softer. Just
This
like
was
this.
more of a jowl.
Yeah,
situation.
you can hear my cheeks are fatter and heavier. they sag.
Not full droopy dog, just a
No,
little.
no. But I don't think I'll like get a jowler talk like that. Well, that's got an accent all of a sudden.
Yeah, you just completely
Maybe I
changed
moved
your
south.
accent. When I'm older, I'll be a little bit British.
I'm old now, and this is how I am. This is too short a season. When an elderly Starfleet admiral hides a deadly secret, he leads the Enterprise D into a hostage rescue mission.
Didn't trust this admiral from the get-go. First of all, terrifying old man makeup. Absolutely horrifying.
Yeah.
I mean, no offense, they did their best.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to do old people makeup, and this one I think was not done well on top of it as well. He looked like a glazed donut at some point.
Yeah, well, this is the thing, is that there was such a missed opportunity here with the makeup that it could have been an alien. If they had made it an alien that was old, we wouldn't have known the difference. You know what I mean? Like, oh, that's what the old aliens look like. But they wanted to get that sort of the relation of being human to show old man becomes young man.
And they wanted to get back to sexy young man.
Right. But I mean, the acting was like a Jim Henson puppet anyway, so you might as well make it look like it.
I mean, I thought it was a Jim Henson puppet for half the episode.
Very Yoda-esque.
So I wanna talk about this Karnas, the governor of the Lardenfol. Or something.
Wow. I'm impressed.
Yeah,
I
you got
wrote
it.
general syllables. It is definitely, I don't think the word lard is in there, but anyway.
Might as well be.
This guy was so sketch from the beginning, and I'm really surprised Deanna Troi was not onto it, because she said, it's kind of truthful, but kind of not. This Karnas guy, so sketchy, was like, there's a terrorist with hostages, and he'll only talk to this one admiral. And it's like, feels like you're saying this.
Yeah, this plot structure was real loose.
Yeah.
Well, importantly, there wasn't a lot of showing in this episode. There was a whole lot of telling. Like,
Yeah.
I actually had to rewind in the teaser, which is the first 5 minutes of it, to make sure I understood what was going on, because there's so many people explaining the situation. And the situation is all about this past event and how it relates to now, that I was like almost taking notes on exactly what was happening.
Right.
It seems like most of these scenes, there was so much dialogue and information overload that we kind of forgot to, I don't know, have fun and play Star
Right?
Trek.
Also, there was a significant lack of like the regular cast. Like, this was just basically Picard, Crusher, and the guest stars.
Yeah, when the away team was getting onto the transporter pad, I was like, oh yeah, Yar's in this episode.
Right.
I just forgot about you guys.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, well, we meet the wife of Admiral Mark Jameson, Anne, who is like way younger than him at the beginning of the episode. And
Right.
as we learn, the dirty secret is he Benjamin Buttons, if that wasn't clear.
Well, so he's supposed to be 85, but he looks to be about 120. Like,
Yeah.
Right, that's what I
he's
wrote.
super old. Like, I have a 90-year-old grandma, and she looks much better than he does.
Not only is he supposed to be 85, but he's an admiral in Starfleet. And the assumption is he was getting like the best health care ever, but also that he had Iverson's disease. So it could be that that's what
Oh, yeah,
affected-
right. Iverson's disease. That's true. Good point.
Because we don't
Yeah,
exactly
I was
know
going to
what
bring
that
up,
is.
it's kind of equivalent to MS, I'd say, but it's a degenerative disease that is irreversible, according to the lore given in this episode, and
Right.
maintained later on if you check out the Memory Alpha page on it. And really blows Crusher away when he starts to, one, get up out of his hover chair, support chair.
The
They got a fancy name for it.
Yeah, it looks like the Saturns of the 90s, like that interior of a car with that wood
yeah.
paneling and like.
Totally. You got to get the vacuum between the edges of the chair in there.
So according
weird.
to Trek, the unauthorized behind-the-scenes story of TNG, Admiral Jameson's state-of-the-art 24th century wheelchair was not an easy thing to deal with for the prop department. It cost them $10,000, and it didn't
What?
even move well.
For that one prop?
Well, you'll notice in a lot of the scenes, he's very stationary, and I think they
Right.
had problems moving it around. There was only like 2 scenes where it actually moves, and there's a couple scenes where that front compartment opens up, but for the most part, the camera moves around it, and it stays stationary, if you know.
I
That's
kind
true.
of thought when we first see him on the transporter, it made me realize that transport room is not accessible. Because how does he get off of the transport platform in that thing? I was like, oh, it's about to hover. Nope, we just cut out of the scene.
That's true.
He did marry a much younger woman, though, and
Right.
is definitely several decades younger than he is, but not for long.
I feel most sorry for Anne in this episode, and
Marrying such a D-wad.
well, as we were discussing, like, there's so much dialogue and so much talking in this episode. We definitely needed a B plot, and we didn't get one. And I think a great B plot would have been from Anne's perspective.
Yeah.
I want to know what it's like to, like, she finally has her husband back at home after he spent his whole career out in space without her, and now they can't have this retirement together because he's back out doing it again. And like, she knows that he's gonna die, and it's only happening more rapidly, and he's been hiding a secret from her. Like, I would
Right.
love to see that dynamic and her perspective.
And he took her dose. Like he just straight
Right?
up
I
was
wanted
like,
to
I got
talk
one
about
for
that.
you too, but
But I took it all
Yeah.
at once. I took both of our doses in their entirety because I had the opportunity to negotiate on a ship again.
Man.
And Picard gives up all of his power to this senior mission officer, which I kept thinking Picard really needs to call into Starfleet and say, yo, you sent me this admiral. He's legit crazy. I'm going to have to not listen to his commands. Yet that never happens.
Yeah, and that, in a way, that can't happen, because if Picard starts questioning an admiral's orders, that means there's disorder on the whole ship, because then everyone's questioning Picard's orders, and who do they listen to? The admiral, which is technically higher rank, or their own captain, so it just would create a bunch of confusion, but you make great points. Like,
I mean, forced retirement is a thing in most industries, especially the military. Like,
yeah.
You have to retire after a certain point, and at that point, a medical officer might be able
Right.
to deem you incapable.
Was he pulled out
Exactly.
of retirement, or was he still active when they got him? Because they weren't even sure, like, he was around, right?
I think
Yeah,
he was pulled out.
Okay.
I think so too.
You bring up a good point, Becca. I think we should keep an eye on this, because as I recall from my childhood, there's other admirals that get into some fishy stuff aboard the Enterprise, and we'll see if they get yanked down or, like, their orders belayed. In fact, Picard in the transporter room was like saying, you know what, Admiral, you can't go. And the Admiral turned around and says, you know what, I'm in charge of this mission.
Right.
And Picard says, the Admiral's correct. He
Right.
has that right.
Yeah.
And as captain of the ship, and he pauses, and I'm like, this is where it's going to come in. As captain of the ship, I'm in charge of where it goes, so I'm not going to allow you. But he makes the choice of, I'm going to accompany him. It's
Right.
like, what?
No, and
You're
I
just,
think-
Well,
you're
he has to
empowering
protect
him.
his crew.
But wouldn't Riker be pissed about this? Because his whole purpose is
Yes.
to never let Captain go on. And now he's letting the
Yes.
Captain and the Admiral go down.
And then Picard gets on the transporter and just shouts, "Riker, you're in command of the Enterprise, energize!" And I was like, that's how you leave a room.
See,
Riker doesn't even have the room to argue at all.
I was wondering if that was shot on a different day and they forgot the tone of the previous shot, because it was so casual the way Picard said it when he walked up, and then the next shot is like, "Riker, you have command of the Enterprise, energize!"
Right.
Well, you got to talk through to be heard all through the fuzzy snow of the transport.
Right. But I also saw it as like, aha, I caught you at your own game, Admiral. I can come with you. And it's like, that wasn't as much of an aha as you thought it was, but whatever.
So I guess the A and the B plot is sort of, you could convolute it as the backstory, which is not a very strong B plot. And the backstory is that Karnas and Mark Jameson have this whole history. 45 years ago, there was a hostage negotiation, and Mark Jameson, it comes out, instead of negotiating, he just gave the terrorist whatever he wanted, which was a bunch of weapons, solved this by also giving weapons to the other side, therefore sparking a civil war. Now, Karnas is a respected character amongst Federation actors, but Karnas is the leader of one faction of this civil war, is a terrorist himself. So I guess he was telling the truth when at the beginning he says the terrorist is demanding this, because he's the terrorist, which we should have, had some notes on this guy and known he's not trustworthy.
I think the propaganda that, like, the Admiral had spread after the negotiation went through is that this guy's a capable leader.
Right.
Because we negotiated with him successfully. But secretly he gave him guns as well, and so he tried to get away with it.
And a big plot point for that, too, is that he mentions the previous 2 mediators were killed because they didn't give them what they wanted.
Right.
So this guy's coming into this job of, like, the first mediator gone down, said, "No, we can't do that, you're dead." They sent a second one, they're like, "We can't do that, you're dead." The third one they sent down, like, "Maybe we can give you some guns. Maybe don't kill me." But he did it in secret, and then secretly gave the other side guns as well, because he figured, I'm not violating the prime directive of advancing their technology on one side or the other if I give them all the advanced technology.
Yeah,
which is
that's not how that works.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of makes me not care about this plot because I hate Mark Jameson so on many levels. He's just the absolute worst.
I wonder if he's supposed to be likable to, like, the man's man that watches Star Trek. I don't know.
I don't think he is. Like, he's not. I mean, here's my question. What fixes this episode? Because the idea of the episode's kind of cool. The whole age reversal, the idea of going back to fulfill your duty, to right a wrong from the past. I'm kind of on board with all that. But the way they presented it was so boring because they talked so much about it instead of showing us anything. So what fixes this? Do we like learn to sympathize with the hostage and see do we like see hostages and like learn their situation and maybe sympathize with them and their situation? I still think Anne is a good place to go to in terms of her relationship. I don't know. What's the solution?
Yeah, we did never see the hostages, who we really kind of sacrificed when we just decide to go teleport down and wander amongst the tunnels.
Yeah, they're the convenient time bomb that, like, we had in previous episodes of, like, we have to get to Romulan space or we have to do this. It's like, well, we have to rescue these hostages. They're going to be executed in so many minutes if we don't hand Jameson over. And
then Jameson becomes the time bomb of, like, if we don't do this now, he's going to die. It'll never get resolved because they won't believe that he's not, dead. So
honestly, I think what would have saved this episode for me is if, first of all, no offense, I'm going to recast this actor. And I want Anne to also take the Iverson, the DNA changing drink that he found on Cenobus 2. This Fountain of Youth. I want them both to take it, and I want it to be about their love. And he's doing this to prove that he can do it, and that we're actually surprised with the reveal that he sparked a civil war because we like him.
That would have been better, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's that feels like not necessarily the actor's fault too much. Like, the writing didn't give him much to... It gave him so much talking about what had happened instead of living in it a little bit. I liked his sweaty monologue at the end. As an actor, I was, like, appreciating that, especially because he didn't have to... He wasn't burdened by all that makeup, too, and you can actually show his intensity a little bit.
It was a hard role to have. Like, there was a lot of stuff that you kind of had to convey, but it wasn't done in the best way. But I did...
gonna be harsh, and I'm gonna say that it is the actor's fault this episode is bad. He was given an entire episode, and honestly, my opinion is, even if you're playing a character that does things that are unlikable, you as an actor need to find a way to make us care by being likable. The best villains are the ones that we care for and see their point of view. Yeah. And I don't think he played this well. I think he played it as it was written on the page, which if you play it as a likable person that does all these unlikable things, then we're on board.
Right, and I think there was potential there with the formula, but they just went to the direction of this formula made this person a monster, and so we're just going to ramp that up, and it was the wrong kind of way to go about it.
We didn't even really see any of that transformation. We just see it in different scenes where his makeup changes. Like, we didn't actually see that change in personality as well.
Speaking of makeup changing and his wrinkly, bulbous, like almost pulsating skin turns into this beautiful baby skin. Man, has great skin. And yet the scar on his wrist that is the blood bond he made with the guy he made a terrorist deal negotiation with so that they would remember that they're blood brothers, that scar stays.
I don't know. I think that maybe he hadn't gone, if he had only gone like 44 years, so it looked like a fresh scar, and it was like just when it just happened, maybe.
I see.
So that was a perplexing thing for me, is why didn't this guy recognize him from the past? Like, I get that he didn't believe he was young, but they knew him from that time.
I know.
Or maybe accuse him of being the son or grandson.
He kind of did.
Or a fabrication or whatever. And yeah, he kind of loosely did. He kept telling Picard it was a charade or whatever. But, like, visually, you know who this guy is. This is how you know him.
It was garbage. It's just all garbage with big plot holes that don't make any sense.
Hey, look, everything that the show gained with the previous episode of 11001001, this one took the back burner.
And I think it's interesting, though, that if you take a look at that, the last one was a very ensemble-heavy show where we got to see a lot of different aspects of the crew. This one, we got to see Picard and Crusher to an extent, but really was focused on these other guest actors who, again, I think they were giving some space to people that were coming in from old Hollywood. Maybe it was some favors that were owed or something like that, because I know that the actress that played Anne, I looked a little bit into it, she was actually like a blacklisted artist or actress in the 40s and 50s, and then came back in the 70s for like one role and then this role. And so
really?
I think
it was that far apart? That's crazy.
Yeah. So
just as a reference point, Marcia Hunt is her name,
right?
And she was.
I didn't do too much research, so I wanted to preface with that.
I'm really just skimming Wikipedia right now, but I'll give us a quick sidebar.
Was it like McCarthyism?
It was the House Un-American Activities Committee, which was McCarthy's committee. Her and her husband, a screenwriter named Robert Presnell Jr. They were both part of an anti-House Un-American Activities Committee. I think it was called the Committee for the First Amendment. Yes, that's what it's called.
And it was something with the Screen Actors Guild too, right?
Oh, yes. And so a bunch of actors and her, they all went and protested in Washington, including John Huston, Humphrey Bogart, Lauren Bacall, Danny Kaye.
Oh, wow.
So she was amongst a number.
Screenwriter Dalton Trumbo being the one that Bryan Cranston portrays in the movie Trumbo, which is how I know about this whole era. It was really sad and really informational movie.
She was another victim of that, and both her and a number of others were blacklisted for many years. Her career did pick up later again when all of that kind of got washed away in the early 60s or late 50s. But
before that, didn't she? She made like 21 movies or something like that.
Wow.
She was in a ton of stuff in the 40s.
Yeah.
Can you imagine your career just being shut down by
literally
you saying that authoritarianism is wrong?
And you'll never work in this town again, and they mean it, because you can be blacklisted and not work,
Crazy.
Yeah.
Wild. Well, she was great. Yes. I liked the actress.
And I loved her character and her performance. Like, I definitely wanted more of her. I was sad we ignored her presence for the final scene when her husband is dying. They beam her down to the planet to be there, and she has like 2 lines. And I kind of want to see her watch as Karnas points a weapon at her husband too. I was like, where's Anne's reaction? I definitely want to see that. And we get a sweet moment of them during his literal last seconds of life. But I definitely want to see her go for it.
Yeah, and I think we have the scene with Anne and Crusher and Troy, I think. And it's the 3 of them talking, and I wanted a conversation with them to talk about her and her feelings, but the whole thing was about Jameson and how that's going to affect her. And I'm like, Come
I'm
on.
sorry, it doesn't pass the Bechdel test?
No, not
What?
that.
I said that. I was like, okay, this is a Bechtel's test opportunity, but they're only talking about him, right? And that's all
whole
the
time.
conversation is. Yeah.
It was
Again,
disappointing.
That's a symptom of this damn script, which just focuses on this one dude and this conflict for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, we have to get something else going on in here.
Right.
That being said, there were some really good lines. I love the line, "Now that smells like Jameson."
Yeah.
When Karnas is referencing their little mission down under the sewers, where they were fighting
my
like a
God.
group of welders. Like, what were those masks?
Who knows?
Oh, you mean their tie-dye uniforms? We talking
The
about tie-dye
resistance?
The
I don't
aqua
know.
camouflage.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Team Aqua and Team Magma. That's a
And when
Pokemon reference.
they beam down to these tunnels, he's like, "Okay, perfect. We're in the secret tunnels now."
Yeah.
Speaking at full volume. Do you know how to sneak, dude?
Right, and we must go this way. It beams through a wall, or like
Data is
phaser
like,
through a wall.
"Hey, I have schematics of this whole thing, and
Yeah.
we're going the wrong way. We're just gonna follow this senile old man that's in a young man's bodysuit."
He's
Right.
the NPC in every RPG game that clearly is going to make a huge mistake that you have to clean up later in the level because they're being too loud or too.
Or it's the DM surrogate that's like, come on, I put all this plot together, just blow a hole through the wall and get to the bad guy.
Luckily, we can just beam out of it as soon as he starts having his like heart attack. I'm about to turn into an even younger man.
Right,
At this
but-
point, I thought we might see him as like an infant in a
baby.
baby cradle.
Yeah,
I thought
that
that would
would've
be
been
really
good.
fun.
I did ask. I did write down that is this going to be a Benjamin Button situation? And actually,
hope.
in the original draft, he was going to revert down to the age of 14.
Oh. But
Eventually,
then Will Wheaton was like, not on my ship.
And people were like, "It's gonna be real awkward when this much older woman has to have like a very emotional,
Yeah.
romantic death scene with
It
him."
could have been interesting, but yeah.
I thought it was a sweet attempt. I kind of liked the line, but I also like gray hair, so I didn't like
yeah,
the
the
fact that he
gold.
only sees the gold. But
Yeah.
it was close to sweet.
They
I was
tried.
like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And I think that this really solidifies what they need to focus on and they find going in the future, in that it is an ensemble show. We want to see multiple aspects of ship life. We don't want to just focus on the captain or just these guest stars. And I think that they kind of take the notes, because the old Star Trek was kind of like that. It was Kirk and Spock basically would go on these adventures, and then every once in a while they would come back or take some crew with them. And they're showing that it doesn't really work that way with this crew.
They took so much time to talk about events that we don't see and people that we
Yeah.
don't see. We talk about Karnas for like 30 minutes, and he's only in one scene. I mean, he's in those view screens a couple times,
yeah.
but like he's hardly in the whole thing. I mean, I
Right.
wonder if they could have done a flashback and lived in those scenes, and then we see the negotiation throughout. We see different flashbacks, and then we learn what eventually happens towards the end, instead of him constantly having a poorly lit conversation in the observation lounge and confessing what had happened
Who knows?
previously.
What's my makeup gonna look like now? I'll come through the shadows. I'm younger.
Every time it's so
Every
obvious
time.
we're going to see a makeup change.
Oh,
Bum, bum,
man.
bum.
But the shadows really sell it.
It's that fog of war.
Do you guys remember those tiny little TV screens? I used to bring them to the baseball game when I was like 5 in
Yeah.
1994.
They were like little boxes of like a TV set.
Why would
Well,
you bring
we
them
got
so you
one
could
of
hear?
those, so you could replay pictures. So I could do something else. So you could
Slideshow.
replay pictures. Look, he
Yep.
was younger. It's all happening on the ship.
Well, I believe you now. Now that I've
Yeah.
seen these images.
Undoctorable.
I know,
Yeah.
Picard put together a PowerPoint presentation to prove
of
what had
3
happened.
pictures.
See? Now see?
See?
Now see.
Whoa. They could have made that screen any size they wanted because
Yeah.
they put it in post. They had that capability. And yet, like, they couldn't think outside this tiny, tiny TV box.
Also, I almost guarantee in this era, computers had the technology to morph between one image to another. I know because I was doing it as a little kid. I had this test program called Morph, and you would just plug in some pictures and you would morph one into the other. If I was
Whoa.
doing that, I guarantee the special effects budget could have handled a transition.
It's
But
easier
would-
to just cut away.
Would Karnas
Yeah.
have been like, hey, that's a morph. We have
Right.
that technology too.
yeah.
I know that. We read Animorphs.
Yes.
This episode also produced a word that I had never heard before, and I will now try and get it into my vocabulary, which is pharmacopoeia.
Oh, yeah, and you saw Crusher be so proud when she, like, just slipped that in. She's like, it's not in our pharmacopoeia.
The slightly drug pharmacopoeia.
Pharmacopoeia.
Which, for those of you who don't know, it's a book, especially an official publication, containing a list of medicinal drugs with their effects and directions for their use.
Any chance to check out Gates McFadden and her sassy shorter haircut.
She's got that bob.
She's doing the bob. She's working the bob.
But we also get to see a little bit, I think, in this one of Crusher having a life outside of the Enterprise. Of she is a doctor, and she's interested in these things and in performing these tests and these studies, and even trying to finding this cure potentially for this disease. But then finding out about the Fountain of Youth sort of drug, and I think that was the moral of the real moral of the story. They were trying to say, like, Fountain of Youth, don't do it. You get old.
That was really
and
shoehorned in the last 3 lines. It's
really
like,
was.
Well, don't pursue youth. It's a reckless venture or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, yeah.
Age and wisdom have their graces too.
Oh,
yeah.
There it is. Yeah. Well said. I think we all agree this episode was well, I don't think we all agree. I actually like the idea of this episode. I don't like its execution. Do you guys actually like the idea of this episode or don't care?
It's absolute trash.
It is trashy. What one thing that did surprise me, though, on this watch through, I fully expected, like, sort of have it on in the background and sort of check out, maybe make some jokes in my notes, but I ended up, like, fully paying attention to it. And
because
I was like,
you have to. You have to listen to every word, or else you miss the whole point, because they're keep telling you things in event history.
That's true. I didn't want to, like, miss something that was glossed over in a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had to rewind several times because someone in the room would say something, and I was like, hold on, they just gave so much information.
Yeah,
I did the same thing.
Now imagine that playing live on your TV set and having commercials in between to confuse you even more.
Yeah, good point.
Hey, I can't wait for episode 16.
Oh?
I don't know what it is.
Did
Jake,
you just
what is
prompt
it?
me?
Yeah.
You so want to end this episode because you disliked this one?
I mean, I could talk about 1100100 some more if you like.
Yeah. Let's make the end of this episode about a previous episode.
Okay, we forgot to talk about how Dr. Crusher last episode went to see her favorite doctor.
That's
talking,
true.
Professor Terrence Epstein,
Who actually
on cybernetics meeting regeneration. So you know what? It kind of was a little bit of a precursor about regeneration in a way,
That
which
is.
we know she's very knowledgeable about because she just went to a seminar.
Right.
Well, maybe one of the writers was trying to, like, thread those needles and actually put that together a little bit, but they never really got the page amount because they had to spend so much time with Mark Jameson's bullshit.
Well, we'll see if they thread anything into next episode. What's it about, Jake?
Are you ready to go to the kids' deck?
Did you just prompt me?
I think so.
Let's do.
When the Bow Breaks is our next episode. Wesley Crusher must protect a group of kidnapped Enterprise children while Captain Picard fights for their release.
We're going to see what's going on in the after-school program. Yeah.
Isn't this like a Home Alone type episode?
I think so.
Don't they get up to some antics?
Oh, there's scamps, all of them.
Are there marbles on the floor and iron swinging from ropes?
It's this
Who
episode or
knows?
another one. I remember definitely some kids climbing through the vent shafts. What are those called? The Jeffries tubes?
The Jeffries tubes,
Yeah.
yeah. I think that might be another one because that one is Picard gets younger too.
Oh, right. Oh, man. We have so much to watch.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to it.
Engage. Make it so. Oh, yeah. Mark Jameson said make it so, and I was like, no, you
You don't get
fucking
to say
didn't.
that.
He also called Riker #1. That's Picard's thing.
Yeah. Anyway,
Engage.
I'm going to stop recording now. Engage.